So what's up, homies? What's up, everybody? Oh god, press this thing. I got like this I got the caking what was it, henshin weapon from Kamen Rider Gav. I hate that it's small, right? It's like the size of like your you know, your two like fingers. Like I could hold it like this type of like shit, right? The handle is very like small. What the fuck, dude? But at least it looks sick though. Very sick form, Kamen Rider Gav caking. Actually, all of like the Gav forms, right? Like the upgraded forms. Those designs are really sick. I can't wait Master Gav to look like in the show. But we're not going to be talking about Gav. I wish we could. We're mainly going to be talking about fighting games, right? And I'll start this off with like, you know, a question, right? That's been what I've been like seeing for at least fighting games nowadays. And that is, are fighting games, is it Wrigley? No. Are fighting games bloated, right? Are fighting games bloated? Are we like getting like that full stomach, like, you know, oh, I can't like move anymore or something like that? No, it's nothing like, you know, like that. Rather, I mean to use bloating in like in a figurative sense, where, you know, there's just so much like fighting game, like, you know, material out there that, yeah, it's actually like, you know, I think maybe like not good though. The reasoning for like this like bloating is more specifically for Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, right? Fatal Fury City of the Wolves has been doing above and beyond for their content to get Fatal Fury out there. And more specifically, they've been doing extensive collaborations with a lot of different companies and a lot of different advertisement materials to get Fatal Fury like out there, right? The main two draws of Fatal Fury were Salvatore Ganacci and Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Those two characters were like, you know, the first wave or the first signs of, I would say, fighting game bloatingness, because yeah, those characters, at least like one of them, Cristiano Ronaldo, is like an international football star, like larger than life type status, right? If we were to like make like a Mount Rushmore of international football stars, at least like to my knowledge, right? Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, David Beckham, Mbappe, him being added in like Fatal Fury was definitely like, wow, like what a fucking like wild card, right? To have like a very famous like football star in there, albeit, you know, very controversial things happened to Cristiano Ronaldo, you know. And then we had and then after that they doubled down with another guest character, and that was Salvatore Ganacci, right? Salvatore Ganacci being a Bosnian Swedish DJ rapper, like EDM artist, right? Nobody liked Salvatore Ganacci at first debut. Like, who the fuck is this guy that looks like Edgelord Max? That was like, those two characters were baseline roster and they were taking up two other characters. But it didn't just stop with those two. No. Fatal Fury was going through like a world tour of, you know, just merch release. Well, there's always going to be like merch release, but advertisements. Like, then there was like another commercial with Fatal Fury about a KSI boxing match with another like boxer, and then KSI was like digitally rendered into the Fatal Fury universe. And then there was I Show Speed of all people. That's like the second best like streamer next to like khaizakahn. And then there are like other events that Fatal Fury got themselves like into, like being in Times Square, New York. And then there was in the London like tour buses, like you get to see Fatal Fury stuff like in the back, which is like kind of like a cool callback to some of the other like SNK games like KOF 15, where they had like a KOF inspired or SNK inspired tour bus in game. And then there was also WrestleMania coming too in depth like into society. I mean, culturally they have been with like Street Fighter, so you know they have been, but are they trying to go more ham into, you know, the casual crowd, trying to get units like out there, right? Are they getting too big of themselves? I think so. And it's not just like in Fatal Fury, there's also Tekken with like, you know, sponsorships from Chipotle, and then there was also the Street Fighter Chipotle thing. Yeah, there's just like fighting games have been like going more and more above and beyond, further into the stratosphere of being like, just, you know, we're the biggest names in town, we're gonna be competing with actual fucking sports, dog. Actually, esports are now going to be, you know, in consideration at the next Olympic Games, right? What? You know, I originally looked at that and I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty like cool. I showed this to like my boy E-Skater and we were both like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Fighting games are getting up there, dude. But you know, after like consideration, I think that maybe fighting games should step back a bit, right? They should just like, you know, go back to like their roots sort of thing, right? There's too much like fighting game trying to appeal to like the casual market and trying to, you know, make their way to Hollywood status that, yeah, I don't think that's like the best way for fighting games to, you know, to probably like evolve and to like be more than that. I mean, it's good because I mean, before then, fighting games were always going to be like, not always, fighting games were niche and always going to be like niche. They're a very like interesting group of video games where not a lot of people can like really like get into, like, let's say a JRPG or like a shooter, things like that, or even like a MOBA, where everybody can like access like a MOBA, considering like League or things like that, anything that like Riot Games does, you know, things like that, or even like a JRPG like a Final Fantasy VII or a Persona or a Claire Obscure Expedition 33 that's been taking up Steam by storm, right, of how really impactful, you know, games like those are. And of course, GTA, right? But yeah, I think like fighting games are becoming like too bloated, too like very like big, and I want to offer like the solution to like maybe like step back a bit from like maybe like the sponsorships, or, you know, well, of course, like sponsorships, they could be like okay, especially like in like semi like small locals, right? I think like one of my favorite tourneys to watch would be Frosty Faustings, would be Combo Breaker, right? Because those are like the vibes of just grassroots level like functions. There's no like corporate oversight of like, let's say Capcom going to be attending those things. I mean, in Combo Breaker there are like a few times that companies do like show up, like Harada, like last year announced Lydia, and this year he's going to do it again for Fakurum. That's going to be coming, and he's going to have like a debut like gameplay trailer for his ass. But I like those events because you don't really pay attention to just like the sponsorships or like things like that. I mean, of course, you know, in the tournament you play for like your all, but it's not like, you know, there's going to be $1 million prize pools along the line, like let's say like a Capcom World Tour or an SNK World Tour, or even like EVO, right? Where a lot of like, you know, both figurative and physical like things are on the line. In events like these, it's just there for like fun. Like Combo Breaker and Frosty Faustings, also just like there to just like catch like the vibes of tournaments, you know? Everybody's here to like, you know, have fun and chill around and just like talk about and become like, you know, why you love like fighting games, you know? When you have like, you know, corporate stuff like EVO, I'm not saying EVO is a bad thing, I still want to go to like EVO, but it feels like EVO, it feels like fighting games, or at least like FGC like tournaments, feel like they're they're more sponsored or tailored to agree with like, you know, a company deal rather than just like, you know, just to be have fun sort of shit. And not to, you know, discredit like Street Fighter, Tekken, well, Tekken like a little bit because whatever's going on with like season 2. I heard there was a patch notes that improved like, you know, sidestepping a bit, right? And some characters getting like nerfs across like the nerfs here and there. But for games like Street Fighter, it's still very fun. For games like Fatal Fury, it's still very fun. For games like MK1, still very fun. There are lots of things about like fighting games that are like fun. It's just like these like wide level hand reaches that fighting games are like trying to like do to get like a casual audience, to get sponsorships, you know, cajoling, to get fighting games much more bigger and much more broader than it ever has like before. You know, alhamdulillah, that fighting games are bigger, that they are better than they were like before, but I would say maybe just like take like a step back and reevaluate what it means, you know, for a fighting game to, you know, or to succeed. Garnish attention to, right? Get like good fans, not like overall like a casual Joe Schmo living in New York doesn't understand what the hell like a Fatal Fury is. I only got Fatal Fury because Ronaldo isn't like in the game. Fatal Fury is much more, so much more than just like the Ronaldo like crossover. It's like saying, oh, we're gonna get you excited for Power Stone, right? There's gonna be a new Power Stone, you should be excited for it. We spent all this advertising stuff in there whatsoever. But would the average gamer, not fan, but gamer, would know about Power Stone? No. Most of them, are they gonna know, at least like for Capcom, there are a few games that they have, but Marvel vs. Capcom is definitely like one of them. And then there's also Street Fighter that's definitely above in terms of like broad like outreach. But yeah, nobody's gonna get excited for, let's say, like a new Power Stone unless you're like a Power Stone. Same thing, similar thing with like Fatal Fury. No one's gonna know what a Fatal Fury is. Fatal Fury showed up in a WrestleMania event. That's how I got to know about Fatal Fury. But do you really know about Fatal Fury, my guy? No, you don't. You just saw it was on WrestleMania. You tried it out, maybe for like a week. But Fatal Fury is definitely one of those games that is going to cater to fighting game hardcore fans that know about the story, the lore, the culture of Fatal Fury, and not really much for like the former reason that it was featured on the WrestleMania event. So yeah, like, what are we doing with fighting games that they're going to be featured in events like those when, you know, we know what SNK's like target audience is, which is, you know, fighting games. I don't think there was that much broad, you know, advertisement for Fatal Fury in King of Fighters 15, King of Fighters 14, King of Fighters 13. There was some stuff with maybe Samurai Showdown, like commercials and stuff. Commercials are fine, but there was not like a global like hand reach, you know, trying to get players into Fatal Fury, into an SNK game like Fatal Fury. Mostly comes down to like was like the Saudi money trying to like, you know, that Saudi government partnership deal with SNK. They're trying to get SNK out there. I don't think that was the best like idea. I don't think that's like the wise like approach for, you know, fighting games to include like DLC or DLC or guest characters that, you know, are totally out of like the norm, include them in, you know, things like that. Or in some other cases where you introduce like a game that's so like aggressive, right? So aggressive that's very casual friendly. Everybody and their mama is playing it, and all of a sudden a patch note comes out that totally betrays like the fan base, and everybody is posting negative reviews on Steam of what the fuck is going on. This is not my game. Maybe like fighting games should just like stick to like, you know, fighting games. Of course, if you can find ways to make, you know, a fighting game or the fighting game genre like explode without having it like sell its soul or like lose its former self, go ham, go cook, right? Because I love to see like fighting games, you know, like evolve within like its own like realm, right? You know, holistically, intrinsically, you know, but not for the sake of like, we're gonna grab like an audience. That's like the monkey's paw, or that's like the caveat of the explosive, you know, bloating of like fighting games. Yeah, we want fighting games to, you know, succeed and do well and increase numbers and productivity and things like that, right? But if you focus so hard on like that demographic and not on like what makes the game fun, right? If you can't persuade like the person of what makes this game like fun in its own like merits, like just sit down and just like try it out more than like a week or something like that. Maybe a week is like a bit too much in asking, right? But yeah, just like, you know, like don't lose your way. Do you know the way? You should know the way. Yeah, maybe just step a bit back, focus on just like, you know, the community, focus on like, you know, the game instead of just corporate oversight. We have to make deals for these like sponsorships, make like, you know, your fans happy, and focus on like, you know, just like the fans of your like set like fighting game, and then you will succeed. And then word of mouth will get like spread, not like ridiculous word of mouth, right? Not ridiculous word of mouth. You can have ridiculous word of mouth, just do it in a very tactful like way, if that can like happen. Fighting games should, you know, maybe like calm down a little, reevaluate themselves, and then bring themselves back up, right? You know, with, you know, measures that are agreeable to fans, that, you know, are not just looking at $1 million prize pools. I mean, $1 million prize pools for a fighting game doesn't sound that bad, right? If you win it all. But, well, I mean, that's like another topic in it together. Like, you know, fighting game money creates like that, but I mean, that's there even with like smaller, you know, prize pools. Players play their best, you know, so there's not a lot of like variety in there. $1 million are on the line. You don't want to screw it up. You should take a step back, reevaluate what makes the game really like good, and yeah, that should be enough for a fighting game to like succeed. Otherwise you will get like that bloating.